Hello and welcome to Greek 1. This is Workbook 7. And hopefully you're ready to go. Again, I'm not going to do all of these. You got to do them on your own. I think you should start off by actually writing down the forms of the article first, because that'll remind you of your endings. And then you got them right here to look at if you need to cheat a little bit, which is okay. Let's start off with number 1. First, we're going to read it out loud. Remember, we're going to start with lexical form, then gender, then case number, and then finally we're going to do inflected meaning. That makes the most sense in my little brain. Okay, number 1, agape. Agape. All right, the lexical form for agape, excuse me. Whoa. All right. Lexical form for agape is agape. The only difference is it doesn't have the iota subscript in there. We know that the gender of agape is feminine. And so now we can look at the case endings in our brain. We just added the genitive and the dative. And so now you know that this is a dative. The way I remember that it's a dative singular is that you know it's a dative because it's got the iota, and so the iota endings are except for most for most of the case endings. If there's an iota, it's going to be a dative. The only exception is the nominative singulars. But it's got the little iota, so it's a dative, and because it's little by itself, that reminds me that it's singular, and so we have a dative singular. So when we're doing inflected meaning, how do you translate this as a dative singular? Well, you know agape means love, right? But because it's a dative, you write the word to. So to love, because it's going to be the indirect object. So you say to love. All right, let's do number 2. Kiri. Kiri. All right, so then you think, okay, I think I know what word that is. And then it's a really, I didn't do that up here, but it's a really good idea to add the article so that you know what you're looking at. So it's e agape. And now that we're doing kiri, we know o Kyrios. O Kyrios. So that tells us that O Kyrios, and Kyrios means Lord, that is going to be masculine. And so we're looking at these endings and okay, which masculine ending is this? And that is, again, it's got the iota in there, so that's a tip that it could most likely be a dative. And that's not a singular because it's not, the iota isn't down here by itself. It's up above with its friends. So because of its friends, it's plural. That's how I think about it. So Kyrios means Lord, but it's plural. So it's lords. And then it's dative, so you got to add the little word to lords. I don't know what kind of sentence that would be, but there it is. All right, let's do number 3. Amartion. Amartion. So then you would write out E amartia. That's the lexical form. Again, I'm not typing in the accents. E amartia is a feminine word. And so you're looking at the feminine endings and you're asking yourself which one's omega ni. Omega ni is genitive plural. Great. So we know we have genitive, which means of. The word amartia means sin, and it's plural. So it's not sin, it's of sins, plural. And I'll let you do the rest of these. Remember, if it's got 2x, it's because there are 2 options. And I'll just give you a clue that avtis is can be 2 different genders. Avtos can be masculine, masculine, feminine, or neuter. And so you have to look at all the genders to see which one has the omicron iota sigma ending. Okay. And then Basilias is also a little tricky. So you got to look at the whole chart. In this case, it is going to be within the feminine side. There's 2 alpha sigma endings. So just write them both in there. All right, that's as many tips as I'm going to give you. Okay. Angelos. Angelos Kyriou. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to parse angelos. You should recognize this straight from the, this is a lexical form, so that's just angel, angelos. And it's a nominative, so it's going to be the subject of sentence, angels. And then Kyrios is the lexical form of Kyriou. It's masculine. And this omicron epsilon ending is the genitive singular. So this is Lord singular, but because it's a genitive, you write of Lord. All right. We don't say angels of Lord. We would have to add the article in here. We have to make it definite in English. The angel of the Lord. Angel of the Lord. And then we'd also probably add the word the angel of the Lord. You could say an angel of the Lord. This could be one or the other. So context will tell. All right, let's move on to vita. Phonin angelon. Phonin angelon. The first word, phonin, you should recognize the lexical form of that is phoni. It's a feminine word. So you look at the feminine case endings and you recognize it as an accusative singular. So this is not the subject. This is the accusative, and it means voice or sound, singular. So voice or sound. We don't know yet. And then you look at the next word. You recognize angelon as angel, and angelos is the nominative, and so you're looking at the masculine endings, and that's a genitive plural. So because it's a genitive and it's plural, angel becomes of angels. Genitive means of, and it's plural, so sound or voice of angels. And we can't really pick this, so you could do something like this is either the sound of angels, or it could be the voice of angels. One way or the other, I don't know. Let's do one more. Gamma I agapi tu Christou. I agapi tu Christou. All right. I agapi is the lexical form of agape. That is the dictionary form. Agape means love. And this is the nominative. So we're just going to translate love. It's singular, feminine. Tu Christou. You'd be a very bad Christian if you couldn't figure this right off the bat. Christou is obviously Christ. It's masculine, and you're looking at that ending, and that's a genitive. So genitive means of. Love of Christ. And we're going to capitalize that. Love of Christ is what that says. Now, you could say the love of Christ. That's how you would word it in English. Remember, the article doesn't necessarily mean the word the is going to be in there, but in this case, the love of Christ probably makes a lot more sense than just love of Christ. But that's not necessarily true. Okay, let's go down to translation. Let's do some of the harder ones, just since you can use this as a reference. All right, number 20. Remember, you're reading it out loud so that your entire day room can hear you. Your beautiful Greek pronunciation. Avti ipin to Iesu, oti avti orgizusi, ti vasilia tu anthropon. One more time. Avti ipin to Iesu, oti uti. I read that the wrong. I said avti out of habit. This is uti orgizusi, ti vasilia tu anthropon. All right, let's go word by word. Avti means he, she, or it. In this case, it's got the feminine ending. That's going to be she. This is the nominative singular feminine. So avti is she. It is probably the subject of the sentence. Ibn, you've already learned. This is a verb. One of the few words we've learned. So this is she said. To Yesu. Yesu is Christ, and this looks like a genitive ending. So I'm glad we're talking about this. I'm glad we're going through the workbook, because you might look at Yesu and think, oh, that's a genitive ending. Names don't inflect. So this is actually a dative. I know it's a dative because the article is attached to it. You can see the article right here, right to the left of it. This article goes with this name. Now, the article has the iota subscript. That's the dative singular ending. So I know that this article is a dative singular, and I can tell from just how close they are that this article goes with this name. Because Yesu does not inflect, it can't. I can't tell you just from looking at this word what the case is of this. It doesn't change. But the fact that it has the article, there's a saying in Greek, the article never lies. So what's happening here is the article is telling us that Yesu, even though it doesn't have a case ending attached to it, is actually in the dative singular. So Yesu is dative singular masculine. You just can't see it. You have to look at the article to know. So Yesu is dative singular. Dative means we translate it to, it's the indirect object. It's not the thing directly of it. So she's not saying the name Jesus. She's not saying Jesus, but she's saying something to Jesus. She said to Jesus, Oti. Oti is that. So we do this in English. He said that I was going to go to the store. All right. That's how it's saying. She said to Jesus that, and then you can basically put quotation marks if you wanted. All right. Uti. Uti. Uti is, when you parse it, it comes from utos, and it's a demonstrative pronoun. It means this, and it has the plural masculine ending. So it's not singular this, it's these. I'm just going to put a quotation mark since she's speaking. These. I'm being hesitant here because we haven't even talked about uti yet, so I don't know how he expects you to know what this means. But it's going to be these men, and we're not going to talk about this for several chapters. This is like way later on. So if you're wondering, well, where's this guy getting all this? I'm sorry. I only know this because I know what's coming up. There's no way you could know this at this point. But uti means these men, or these ones. Orgizusi, you have not had this. It means they are angry. So they're going to give it to us. We know that these men are angry. And then ti Vasilia. Ti Vasilia is obviously comes from Vasilia, which means kingdom, and it's a dative. So we're going to write to kingdom. And then we're going to write, look at ton anthropon. Anthropon is a masculine word. So we look at the case endings, and we have omega ni, and that is a plural, and it's a genitive. So genitive means of, and this means men. So of men. Okay, so we've got a very confusing sentence. It says, and she said to them that these are angry to the kingdom of men. Okay, so we got ourselves a weird sentence here. These men are angry to the kingdom of men, and that's in the quotation mark. So the dative can be instrumental, and that's not something that's discussed for a long time when you're learning Greek. So I paused this video to go check this out. So I was kind of surprised that he put this example in here, but if you actually go to the Greek grammar book, he mentioned this. It's almost like the first thing he mentioned is that the dative case in Greek has a wide range of usage, which is absolutely true. Roughly equivalent to the ideas behind the English to, in, and with. So he actually has in the examples, pas o ar orgizomenos to adelphomou. So here he is angry with his brother. That's exactly what we got in this case here, I'm kind of surprised he's throwing that at you, but it's a really good thing because it introduces you to the understanding that the dative is not just to anything. It's actually much, much more complex than that. So when you're translating, you do have to keep in mind that it could be in or with, and that makes a lot more sense of this sentence. She said to Jesus that these men are angry, not to, but with the kingdom of men. That is a tough one. I don't think if I was, I'm sure I got this one wrong when I first took Greek, because usually they tell you that the dative just means to, and it doesn't. It can mean with, it can mean instrumental by, it can mean a lot of different things. So you gotta be on your toes. So he suggests to think about this as to, in, or with, but most of the time it is to. All right, let's do a couple more here. Let's do some of these hard ones against the 20 was rough. All right, let's see what we've got 19 here. Que si isakusi, which means you will hear. Que ileos, merciful. Esi, you will be. Tas amartias tu lau, tu Israel. Que isete avtus is digin. Ooh, that's a good one. All right, one more time. Que si isakusi, que ileos, esi, tes amarties, tu lau, tu Israel, que isete avtus is digin. All right, let's go word by word here. All right, so que is the easy one. It's a conjunction and. It's nothing to parse there. It's indeclinable. Si is you. We don't know what isakusi is. We haven't learned that yet, but it tells us in parentheses, will, hear. Que, again, is and. So far, not too bad. We just have, and you. That's not so bad. We don't know what ileos mean. It tells us it's merciful. And then esi, we don't know either, but he tells us you will be. So so far we haven't really needed to parse anything yet. It's just, and you will hear, and merciful you will be. Okay, so now we're going to start the sentence. Tes amarties. Okay. Amartias comes from amartia, which is a feminine word. And so we'll look at these endings and we will recognize real quickly. It's got the iota, so that's probably a dative. And it's not down below by itself. It's up here with its friend, so this is plural. So dative means to. We just learned it doesn't have to be, but we're just going to assume it means to. And then it's plural, so it's sins. So, and you will hear and be merciful, you will be to sins. Okay, that could make a lot of sense. Tu lau, of course, that comes from people, and it's in the genitive. So, of people, genitive means of, and it's in the singular, lau. So, instead of being laos, it's lau. And then we have tu Israel. We've already encountered this once, that Israel is a name, and it's indeclinable. So we're not going to see a case ending attached to it. That is why we have the article here. The article does not lie. It is telling us that Israel is a genitive singular. We translate genitives with of, and we're going to write of Israel. So far that makes sense. Of people of Israel. The next word is que, and that is a conjunction, which just translates as and. And then you have isete, which means you will bring. All right. Avtus comes from avtos. Remember, it could be any gender. And so we're going to look at the entire chart from an omicron epsilon sigma ending. And you should be able to recognize that as the accusative plural. Oops, I'm writing down accusative plural. So plural is them. And you will bring them. So remember, avtos is he, But because this is accusative plural, they're the ones being directly affected by the verb. So you will bring them. You'll bring them. They're the ones being brought. Is means into, in, on, among. But this is into. And tingin comes from igis, which means the land. That's an accusative singular feminine ending. So this is they're being brought into the land. Now, it's accusative does not make it the direct object of the sentence. In this case, it's the object of the preposition. We haven't talked about that yet, but we'll get into that later. So tingin is into the land, and so we're going to put a period here, and then we're going to smooth this thing out a little bit. So we're going to read the whole sentence and see if it makes sense. And you will hear, and merciful you will be. You don't write merciful you will be. You could kind of say that in English, but really, you want to put merciful after the verb. So, and you will hear, and you will be merciful. That makes a little more sense in English. To sins of people of Israel. All right, we can clean that up a little bit. Normally we would put a the in front of sins like this. And you'll be merciful to the sins of people of Israel. You would probably put another the in front of there. Of the people of Israel. And you will hear and you will be merciful to the sins of the people of Israel. Okay, that makes a little more sense. And you will bring them into the land. All right, to me, that's a pretty solid sentence. I like it. It makes sense. And we're going to do one last one here. Let's go to 18. And we're going to end here. Latrevo ton theon, oti ego pistevo, to evangelio tu iu avtu. One more time. Latrevo ton theon, oti ego pistevo, to evangelio tu iu avtu. We don't know latrevo, so he tells us right there, it means I serve. And the first noun we have with the article is ton theon. Ton theon is obviously o theos. It's a masculine, and so we look at those masculine endings. You should have the chart memorized by now. If you're a little hazy, that is the accusative singular. So it means God, but it's telling us, because it's accusative, God is not the subject of the sentence. He is a direct object. So I serve God. All right, then we have oti. Oti means that sense or because. You could write that out, that sense, because. Ego is I. And then we have pistevo. Pistevo. I don't know why he gave this to you. Pistevo, there's no way you can know this yet. You haven't learned any verbs. Pistevo means I believe. So this kind of, and I can see it could be tricky. I haven't done this workbook in a long time. So, but there's no way you know pistevo. It's not in your vocab yet. Okay. I serve God. That's because I believe to evangelio. To evangelio comes from, it means the gospel, and it's got the euro subscript. So that's a dative because it's an iota. It's down below by itself. It's singular by itself. So it's singular, and dative normally means to. Now, we just learned this in that last example that the dative isn't always to. And here it's going to be true again, because we don't believe to the gospel, we believe in the gospel. So we're going to come back and fix that in a little bit. We're going to look at the rest of the sentence to see it and make sure it makes sense. Tu iu, iu comes from ios, which means son. That's a masculine ending. So we look at these endings here, and we know, okay, this is a genitive. So genitive is usually translated of. And ios means son. So it's singular son. So, of course, I'm going to guess this is Jesus. So we're going to capitalize that, son. And then the last word is avtu. The lexical form of avtu comes from avtos. This has got a genitive ending. Avtos means he. So of genitive means of he. We don't say of he, we say of him. That's kind of awkward because we don't say that either. So let's just go back and smooth this thing out again. I serve God. And I think because is probably going to make the most sense of this, maybe since. But let's just say because. That's why I wrote them all out. That helps a lot. If you know all the options of the words, that sense because makes a little more sense here. I serve God because I believe not to the gospel of the Son of Him, but I believe in the gospel. I'm going to add the word the. I believe in the gospel or in the good news of Son of Him does not work in English. We would rewrite that and say His Son. And that's how we would say that in English. I serve God because I believe in the gospel of His Son. There's no apostrophe there. Of His Son. And that's how we do it. So when you're done translating, you can go word for word and then you go back and smooth it out and it makes a little more sense. And that's about it. Well, guys, that's enough for today. Hopefully that I gave you enough so that you can do the rest of the exercises. Remember, they are answer sheets available online. And until next time, I wish you good luck and Godspeed.